Hello, welcome to another
Varsity Sports Update
from Midco Sports Network, talking high school hoops with Jason and Andera, and we've got the weekly planner coming up where Jason lays out some of the best games in South Dakota, all classes, and a percentage of whatever formula you've come up with, how you think those games are going to come out. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about the big boys in South Dakota high school basketball, and we have defined this. I think we started talking after we saw Hunter Katros from Yankton play against Sioux Falls Lincoln in a live game we did, and you wanted to go back and look at some of the big guys in South Dakota.
I started watching a lot of these AA teams especially and saying, wow, there's a lot more height than I remember in South Dakota. So I went and looked through all the rosters, found all the kids in South Dakota who were 6'8" or more, and I found there was more than a dozen kids, and most of them play in AA. Right here's the list, and a lot of them are teammates, Tom. There's a lot of kids who are 6'8", 6'9". There's a ton of 6'7" kids, by the way,
but that was
which
the
would make this a lot,
where there were very few that were 6'8" or taller, and as you said, a couple from Brandon Valley, a couple from Rapid City Stevens, 2 from Aberdeen Central. Who do you want to start with, though?
Let's talk about those kids from Aberdeen Central. Those are kind of your high-profile guys. Andrew Bergen going to UND next year. Their junior, Reese Burkhardt, is at 6'8", and he's going for 20 points, 10 rebounds a game. Between the two of those guys, they're getting about 4 blocks per game, but that's one of the few tandems, we talked about all these tandems, that they both play on the court at the same time. Brandon Valley has a 6'8" and a 6'9" kid in Terhardt and Jurgens. They never play on the court at the same time. You see Goldie and Mason Steele out of Rapid City Stevens, they interchange, they don't play at the same time. Hardly ever. So those two from Aberdeen Central are really unique on this list, having 2 big guys, but they're not true post players.
And Hunter Katros at Yankton has Matthew Moores on the roster as well, who's 6'7", one of those 6'7" guys you're talking about. But what about Katros?
You know, he's interesting. I talked to Chris Haynes after the game against Lincoln, and he had an absolutely great game, and he said, you know, that's the Hunter Katros we would love to see every week. Consistency, scoring, you're not going to get out of Katros, but you will get consistency on defense. You're going to get the rebounding. You're going to get, that factor in the middle where he's actually changing shots. So he's one of those guys, and he's the tallest on this list at 6'10", just a monster in the middle for Yankton.
Yeah, he's intimidating just being on the floor, Katros is. And then Zane Alm down there at the bottom from Mitchell, you put him together with Caden Hinker, who is 6'6". That's a pretty good combo.
Right. They're up and coming. I mean, they're young too, because you got Hinker as a sophomore, Alm is just a junior. Alm, I talked to his head coach, Todd Neuendorf, said, you know, he's a quiet guy, but he helps the efficiency so much. When he's on the court, their team is double as efficient as they normally are on the offense and defensive side, and that's with all these guys. They just help so much with the intangible things. He's averaging 9.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game. But you can't measure it with stats, what they bring to the court. And we mentioned these Brandon Valley guys earlier, but I want to talk about them again. Gavin Terhardt was their leading scorer down the stretch as they won the state title. He wasn't even an all-tournament selection, but he led the team in scoring. He got hot at the end of last year and has come in and really helped a young team be a contender once again this year. And he's headed to Northern State to play next year. Just a great program player who really gets it. And then his understudy, if you will, is Jay Jurgens, who will come up and back him up from time to time. And Jurgens leads the JV team right now in scoring and rebounding, but doesn't have a lot of time on the court because Terhardt's filling it up right now.
All right, let's get to last week's planner, the forecast, and
let's take a look.
See how you did. Explain to people how you come up with these percentages that we see here. We've got the team logo there. That's the team you think is going to win. We've got the percentage
here's a look.
of what you think, who you think is going to win. How do you come up with these percentages?
Well, and the percentages are based strictly on a math algorithm that I learned in Algebra 2 in 11th grade. And that's pretty much progressed into a formula is where we get all these analytics these days. So this is not me. This is the computer spit out. Now it's me. It's pretty much all in my head of how I think these teams are going to do based on their winning percentages. It's fun because you look at the NFL percentages that they'll show on the bottom line on ESPN, and they're fairly accurate, and these have been fairly accurate too. Last week, all those teams that were predicted to win came through, except for the canceled, postponed games.
Two games didn't play. You were 5 for 5 otherwise with your percentage of who you thought.
Yeah. So a lot of pressure on this week's algorithm.
All right, let's take a look at the forecast, the weekend planner coming up this week, and start with those 3 girls games.
So we've got, girls games coming up on Friday and Saturday. And I'll tell you what, after watching McCook Central Montrose, I think they can play with anybody in the state. Flanders has been one of those surprising teams all year, and I think those two match up very well with Hannah Parsley going to go up against that big team in McCook Central Montrose with those 2 6-footers on the inside. That's going to be a close one.
And these are toss-ups, basically, with you.
Basically toss-ups, and that one's in McCook Central Montrose. That gives them that 4% edge.
Stevens and O'Gorman are both unbeaten right now in AA, and you think O'Gorman had almost 80% chance.
There's going to be a lot of people West River upset with that number because they look at Stevens and their unblemished record. They've got the D1 player in Kai Watson, the 2 bigs in the middle, but you just look at the quality of schedule, the strength of schedule that they've played so far and what they've done against that versus what O'Gorman's done against their strength of schedule, and the numbers that spew out totally favor the Lady Knights in that one. Then we move to the Hanson Classic.
Saturday, you get Hanson, 60% chance over Platte Geddes. You get White River, a 3/4 chance, 3-1 chance.
One of the best chances.
Dakota. Get to the next game with Viborg, Hurley, and DeSmet.
Yeah, this is one where the rest of the state is voting for Viborg Hurley as the number 1 team. I've been voting for DeSmet, and I think the numbers bear out that DeSmet has a slight edge in this game. They've got a little bit better length on the inside. Viborg Hurley may have the better athletes overall, but when it comes down to it, you got a player like Kalen Gary and Rhett Ostis. They're just making plays. They match up well against anybody. I'm taking DeSmet in a slight win on Saturday night, followed up by that Class A game between St. Thomas More, who hasn't lost, hasn't been even close yet this year, going against their toughest opponent, number 3, Sioux Valley.
You will be there with some
I will
live
be there.
updates, your Twitter updates.
We'll get some live updates. Might get some photo finishes on Twitter, too, if you follow me on Twitter.
All right, we will see how you do coming up next week on the next Varsity update here for Midco Sports Network.